Hello everybody, Kyle here. I'm going to give a review for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I was lucky enough to see this film at a special early screening today. The movie doesn't come out till later this week. And I have to say, I was so excited for this movie. To give off a bit of my background with the Turtles, I will say that when I was a child, there were like 4 things that were mainstays in my childhood. It was DC Marvel, it was Power Rangers, and it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was the perfect age when the 2003 series was released on 4Kids. It's my favorite Turtles series. It's my favorite incarnation of the Turtles. And I bought all the toys, I watched the show, I even watched when they did the Fast Forward series back in around, I think it was 2006, 2007, and then I've just been a fan of the Turtles ever since, watching all the movies. My personal favorite is the TMNT CGI animated film that was released in 2007, and starred Chris Evans as Casey Jones, and Sarah Michelle Gellar as April. I think that movie is just exactly what I want from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it also, I think, has a really emotional storyline between Raphael and Leonardo. The same can be said, I think, for the original film from 1990, which is my second favorite. It's really just a perfect interpretation and adaptation of the Turtles, both the comics and the animated series, and I think it meshes them together really well. The cast is amazing, and it's just a lot of fun. Now, lately, the last number of Turtle incarnations haven't, I think, worked as well, especially when we're talking about the Michael Bay produced, starring Megan Fox films that came out, it's crazy to say, but almost a decade ago. I did not really care for those movies, and I was so happy to hear that they were moving in a different direction and they were going into animation once again, but presenting it in a new light where now the Turtles are teenagers, but of course the actors are teenagers too, which is something that has been unheard of when it comes to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle voice casts and voice performances. The cast of this film does not include the Foot Clan. It's all mutants. And I think that was a really smart decision on the part of, Nickelodeon, Paramount, because one, I think it gives them a good foundation for where the Turtles are going to go, and it also gives them a really, really strong way to introduce future characters, but not do it in a way that feels silly. Because if you look at the other Turtles films, what they did was when they had the first film, it usually focused around the Foot Clan, the Shredder, and it was, really serious and dark storyline. Whether it was the 1990 film, even in the 2014 film, the Shredder stuff is a bit dark. I mean, the William Fichtner character, Eric Sachs, murders April's father. But then you get into the sequels, and you have, Tokar Rozar, you have Bebop Rocksteady, you have a lot more silly elements. But the fact that Mutant Mayhem starts off with the silly and the campy, I think, makes it where now when they build later on, say if they bring Krang in to the future of the franchise, it wouldn't feel as, I think, jarring in a shift in tone. But I've talked enough about this and that. What do I think of this movie? I think Mutant Mayhem is a really fun and a really, well-written Turtles movie. I think that the characters themselves are all terrific. I think that Michelangelo, from what I remember, has the least to do in terms of, like, character work. A lot of this film focuses, I think, on the other turtles, but specifically I get more of a Leo focus in this one, because Leo has a bit of a crush on April in this movie, which I thought was really fascinating, because in other incarnations it's Mikey, it's Donnie, but the fact that Leonardo, being the leader, has a crush on April, I think also helps his character out, because Leonardo has always been that character. I think he might be my favorite turtle. It was always Donatello, but throughout the years I've really started to, really like Leo. And he's the type, you could call him in a way the Mary Sue, where he's supposed to be the perfect, turtle, the one that is the leader. And I do like how the way the brothers work around him is they like to pick on him, and you get to see Leo kind of get torn down a little bit, because there's this one joke where they're like, oh, if we had last names, yours would be Nardo. Leonardo. And that's one of the many funny jokes in this movie. Another funny joke, I don't want to spoil it, but it has to do with a certain Chris in Hollywood. If we are aware of the Chris's, there are a number of Chris's, and there is a funny joke in the film. I don't want to give like spoilers, but there are surprising uses of animation, and some of them aren't animation, I shall say. That's all I will say. But I was surprised at some of the things, the images I saw on screen, because I did not expect them to go the way they went. Speaking of the animation, it is astounding. A lot of people are going to compare this to Spider-Verse, but I really don't think that's, necessary, because I think both of these films have very distinctly different animation styles. One of them being in Mutant Mayhem, there's this part where, like, the camera keeps panning from one end to the other, and as it pans, it's like the screen just is, like, filled with watercolors and this, like, blurry effect, but not like the watercolor 3D like effect from the Spider-Verse films. It's almost like it's like liquidy almost. It's a very interesting animation style that they use, and the characters look very distinct, which I love. I really thought, though, that the highlight of the film was the mutants, that not just like the turtles, but there were a number of mutant characters. It's called Mutant Mayhem, and you have Superfly, played by Ice Cube, and Superfly is an incredible character. I really was surprised at how much I like this character. I was afraid that he'd be like a one-dimensional villain, but he actually has a backstory that you can sympathize with, and it really works. And he's also really cool. Like, some of the action moments he has are really cool. And he is played by Ice Cube, and Ice Cube gives a really good voice performance. The other cast, Paul Rudd, I think really steals the show for me as Mondo Gecko. He's like, peoples, they got to go. And he's so funny. And you have, like, Rose Byrne playing Leatherhead. You have, I think Maya Rudolph plays Wingnut. I might be wrong about that, but you have, John Cena plays Rocksteady, Seth Rogen plays Bebop, a number of other performances, and like they really, really work. And they're also surprising. I don't want to give anything away, but there's something about them that happens in like the last act of the film that I actually didn't see happening. I was actually pleasantly surprised that they went the direction they did, because I was afraid that going into this film, the mutants were going to be, you know, one-dimensional villain fodder. Because that's what a lot of these characters have been in the Turtles films. A lot of the Turtles villains are one-dimensional. One of the things I do like about the TMNT 2007 movie is that I do see that they tried to make the villains a little bit more than just, you know, oh, I'm gonna conquer the world. Krang! You know, like, it's... I appreciate villains that have more to them, and here we get that with the mutants. I really thought that the theme of this movie of, like, the Turtles wanting to be seen and accepted, which is something that we've seen throughout the Turtle movies, hell, even Out of the Shadows, the last one made, focused around this. I think it's never been done better than it has in this movie, because there's this one moment where Mikey is, like, looking out of the sewer at New York, and they're like, we just, you know, want to live with them, and we want to party with them because we think humans are cool. And they talk about all the humans that they really, you know, look up to and idolize, and you think of it like, wow, these are just teenage kids that want to just go out in the world and have fun, and they're just stuck home, and they're stuck with their rat dad, they're stuck with, you know, living in the sewers. And I think it's a really, really moving element to this story that really I don't think has been captured before to this degree. The score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross is really good. It reminds me of Stranger Things. I will say that the ending of the film is very surprising, and it is by far the most different thing I've ever seen the Turtles franchise ever do. And I actually applaud them for this, because I think that at first when I saw it, I was like, oh no, wait, what are they doing? But then thinking about, like, the themes of this story, and unlike many other, you know, part ones that we've seen this year, I'm not throwing shade at Across the Spider-Verse, but to be fair, it's great to see a movie end in the way that Mutant Mayhem ends, and you get to really see, like, say they don't make another Turtles movie with this group. You still have a film that has a beginning, middle, and end, and that's it. Now, the end credit scene, because there is a end credit scene, is so awesome. I almost jumped out of my... Well, I did jump out of my seat when I saw that end credit scene. And I cannot wait, because it tees up a sequel, and I cannot wait for a sequel if they make it. But I do like that if this movie, like, if, God forbid, it doesn't make the money they want it to make, there's a huge, you know, problem with people not enjoying it, and they don't make a sequel, I am happy that it ends the way it does end, because that is a really great ending for the film. But yeah, like, I think the film, it's really funny. I think a lot of kids are going to love it. A lot of the jokes, I think, are really relevant to kids today. I'm no longer a kid anymore, but as someone that is growing up in this age of social media and in this age of a lot of, you know, pop culture obsessions and all that, I do recognize when jokes are written in films that feel like they're written by adults rather than kids. And there are a lot of jokes here that I'm like, well, this is a joke that I would see online. This isn't a joke that was written by somebody that went to school in the 80s and thinks that it's still, you know, cool to, you know, it's still funny to make jokes about, I don't know, whatever movie or TV show came out in the 80s. Here, it actually, like, there's a joke about Shrek here, which I love. There's a joke about Avengers Endgame, which I love. And there's a joke about if someone has enough Riz, which I also love. So it's, I think, a really relatable film on that note. I will get to a few negatives I have for the film. One of them being, I think that the beginning and the middle, it's like really like the first half of the film, are a little bit hard to get into. Because personally, I'm watching this movie, I'm like, this is just the same old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle story. I was waiting to be amazed, because I remember when I watched Into the Spider-Verse, I was amazed from like the opening of the film. And then I was taken on that journey. For here, it doesn't work like that. Here, it takes a little bit of time to really get into the swing of things. But as I said, like, the mutant characters are so good that I think once the mutant characters show up, that's when it really sets the ball rolling. And I gotta say, I loved the Turtles, but I will say that Mikey, I do think, didn't get as much as I thought he would. But then again, I might need to watch it a second time to see if he's, you know, given more of a time to shine than he is before. Because really, I was focusing more on Donnie, Raph, and Leo. With Leo getting the bulk's worth of, you know, stuff to do. But yeah, it's a great time. I highly recommend anybody watch it. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you excited for Mutant Mayhem? When do you plan on seeing it? And if you do see it, let me know your thoughts. Thanks, everybody, and cowabunga.